Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prospect Webinar Series. My name is Mercedes Rivero. I'm a workforce advisor at Prospect. We are going to start in a few minutes. We're just going to allow people to access the platform. So maybe we'll wait 1 or 2 minutes. As you can see, my fantastic speaker is already there on camera. Of course, you all know what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about rejection while job seeking. I know that if you're currently a job seeker, it is kind of like a tough market right now, and this topic is very timely. However, rejection is something that it exists, that we deal with it fairly often. So I'm excited to hear what our guest speaker has to say today about the topic. Once again, if you just access the platform, welcome to our event. My name is Mercedes Rivero. We're gonna probably give maybe 1 or 2 more minutes to the individuals who are just accessing the platform. Thank you so much for joining us today. And just a little reminder, right now is the time to find a comfortable place to sit down, or if you want to burn a few calories, to stand up, maybe get a cup of coffee, because today it's sort of like a day where you want to have probably more than one because it's a little chilly outside. So get a cup of coffee, get a glass of water, find a place to sit. If you're interested in taking notes, feel free to have a pen and paper there for you. We will be sharing the slides at the end of the event. So if you just want to be mindful and be present and listen to what our guest speaker is going to be talking about today, please feel free to do so. Once again, if you just joined the platform, welcome to Prospect Webinar Series. We are going to give 1 more minute to the individuals who are accessing the platform before we start. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Thank you so much for registering and attending our event. We are going to do a brief introduction about who Prospect is, the organization that plans this webinar series. Then we're going to introduce our fantastic speaker, and then we're going to start with the presentation. We are also going to talk about this briefly in the next couple of minutes, but we want to hear from you. We welcome your questions. Please, you can explore the menu on the side of your screen. There's a section there for questions, so feel free to send your questions throughout the presentation. We'll make sure that if there are very specific questions, we'll nudge our presenter to let him know there's a question, but we will have some time to do a Q&A. And I see someone has a question already. That's fantastic. Someone is saying good morning. Thank you very much. That's super nice. So I think we gave enough time to our people to register and access the platform. So we are going to start. As I said, once again, welcome everyone. My name is Mercedes Rivero. I'm a workforce advisor at Prospect Human Services. And I'm very excited to have you here today, attend this virtual webinar. We're always excited to see people, and we're always excited also to plan and connect with fantastic speakers in the community to chat about topics that are relevant to you as a job seeker. We're going to start just very quickly talking a little bit about who Prospect is. So if you are not currently a Prospect client, you want to listen to some of the services that we provide. As I mentioned before, Prospect is a not-for-profit organization that provides employment services to people living in Alberta. We have a wide variety of services and programs. Most recently, we started providing services in French. So if you are a French-speaking individual and you're looking for work, you can receive services in French. You can connect with career advisors that speak French, and will hopefully be able to connect you with some organizations that hiring French-speaking individuals, which is fantastic. We also have mature workers programming. So if you're in that age bracket and you are struggling, or you need a little bit more training with computer skills and other areas, we can assist you as well. Also, our program provides job, well, there's a job placement component, so we can actually assist you connecting with organizations that are hiring. We're kind of like your cheerleaders in the community. We try to connect you with recruiters and try to kind of give you a little bit extra support if that's needed. Also, we have work-related employment supports. And like today, we have monthly delivery events. We have, for example, today we're going to be exploring rejection during while you're job seeking, and other months or other weeks we have networking events with companies that are hiring. So we try to provide different opportunities for you to either increase your skills or learn what's happening in the market, what are the latest market trends, and also connect you with employers that are hiring. So if you want more information, I'll talk a little bit about that later in the presentation. And as I said, if you just join us, we are accepting your questions. So please make sure to use on the menu on the side of your screen. You can send us your questions. You can send questions throughout the presentation. If there's something that is very timely, as I said, we're going to talk to our guest speaker. We're going to tell him like, oh, we have these fantastic questions from blah blah, and we're going to have a discussion about that. But we will have some time at the end of the presentation to hear you and discuss some of the questions that you may have. So please, I always say this: don't be shy. That's why we're here. We're here to learn, and that's why our speaker is here, because he wants to hear from you and your opinion and how you feel about this topic. And I know the topic is so. We've all been through this, and if you haven't, I don't know, like I think it's almost impossible. Like, rejection is part of life, so I'm very excited to start. But before we start with our speaker, I'm gonna introduce him so you know who he is. So today we have Brent Berutis as our guest speaker. In the past 40 years, Brent has worked directly or indirectly with many large, medium, and small Canadian organizations, some as an employee and others as a consultant. He has worked in the restaurant and nightclub business, as well as for professional sport teams, charities, and consultancy and advertising agencies. He is a thought leader in Canada, but Brent also understands rejection. From years of looking for work and decades of selling products and services, he has clearly learned how to manage no and no reply. And I think all of us, we can agree, we've been there at some point. Brent is also the author of Amazon.ca's #1 bestseller in the not-for-profit marketing and communications category, Reality Check, Straight Talk about Sponsorship Marketing, and a TEDx presenter of Busting the Work-Life Balance Myth. So, Brent, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me, Mercedes. Thank you to everybody who's on the call.
Absolutely. And so we're going to start. So, Brent, we're going to do the sharing of your screen now. And for the presentation, we're going to be turning off our cameras. So I'll see you guys in a little bit.
And I am hoping that that's now in full screen.
It is. We can see your screen.
And I'm going to turn off my camera, but I presume you can still hear me, but just can't see me. Is that right?
That is correct.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to be here for this session on dealing with rejection while job seeking. As Mercedes said, my name is Brent Berutis. Oops. I'm not getting my, there we go. My name is Brent Berutis. I am president and CEO of a company called Partnership Group Sponsorship Specialists. And we're a company that helps other businesses to get better return on their investment. We watch them, those people that sell what we call corporate sponsorship or naming rights to their facilities. We help them to hire the right people to be able to go out and sell their products and services. We help them to identify what they have to sell. And we're dealing every day in the world of rejection. We also work with the corporations that are putting their names on buildings or those sorts of things and sponsoring events or charities. And again, we work with them to make sure that they're getting what they need and the return on their investment that they're making in their marketing plans. So that's my present day world. And every day, as I said, we're dealing with either us pitching for new business, getting rejection, whether it's helping a client to hire somebody or rejecting people. So the world of rejection is in forefront of all of our busy days. At the same time, when I look back, and as Mercedes pointed out, that the world of rejection isn't new to me. It's been there since day one, from the first time I got told no from a date, no, I don't want to have a date with you, to the first time I got cut on a sports team and didn't make the team. I got rejected. Lots of jobs that I applied to that I did not receive a job placement, as well as selling sponsorship and selling radio at one point, and running nightclubs, and having to be able to deal with rejection every single day. So it's, as Mercedes, you said, it's all part of life. So that's my background. I'm looking forward to sharing my thoughts, my understanding, and my expertise in this area with all of you. And as Mercedes said, please feel free to put something in the chat box. We'll have time at the end. And if it is more pertinent or more applicable right at the moment, she'll interrupt and we'll go from there. I'm going to give you all my contact information so that you've got it. And you can reach me if you have further questions afterwards. My email is brent@partnershipgroup.ca, and this will be all shared with you in a PDF copy, so you don't have to write this down. I am on Twitter, and you're welcome to follow me at PartnershipGRP. I'm also on Instagram, but I can tell you that I don't post on Instagram. I just follow and observe on Instagram. And the most active social media that I'm on, and the one that I would encourage all of you who may be job seekers today, tomorrow, or yesterday, is to be on LinkedIn. That's my LinkedIn connection. And it's the business world, it's the Facebook of business, or it's the Instagram of business. It's the, I'm not sure that it's the TikTok of business, but when we stop to take a look at it, this is where the basis for creating relationships is when you're applying for jobs, or if you've been rejected from a job, how to deal with talking to certain people. So that's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, or if you have questions afterwards, to just send me a quick email. The next thing I'm going to show you here is I do have a blog that goes out every Tuesday morning. It goes out through Twitter, it goes out through Instagram, or sorry, through LinkedIn. But you can also have it emailed directly into your inbox at your email address. And it's called the Tuesday Morning Commentary. Surprise, it goes out on Tuesday mornings. It's a really creative title. But that commentary is about sponsorship, which some of you might not be interested in, but it's about sales, it's about life, and it's about dealing with everything from rejection to success. It's a quick read. It's usually less than 2 to 3 minutes, and it's free. So if you're interested in being part of that and receiving it, you can just go to our website and click through. So the agenda for this morning, what I want to do is just quickly look at what we're going to address, and then we're going to address those areas, and then we're going to go to questions and hopefully some answers. So first of all, I'm going to be defining rejection. We're going to look at what is rejection. Then we're going to look at how to react to rejection. What is the best reaction to that rejection? Then I want to look at trying to understand rejection. How do we understand it? What is it all about, and what do we need to do with it? And then how do we ultimately overcome rejection? And finally, as I said, we have a question and answer and a wrap up. So the first one is, I think there's a poll in here. Just want to know who all has actually ever been rejected for a job. Is there anybody?
And we just sent the poll.
Okay.
So we're just gonna give them a few seconds to, I see people voting. Okay, so let's see, so it was 95% said yes and 5% said no.
Cool. So we have 5% that have never been rejected in a job application. Congratulations to that 5%. The rest of us, we've experienced it before, and we're going to look through this morning to see how to deal with it going in the future. And that 5% that hasn't had a chance to experience rejection again, at least you'll have some tools when and if you do get rejected. I guess I could rephrase that, when you get rejected, because it is a reality. So let's first of all define rejection itself. What rejection is clearly, according to the dictionary, it's the dismissing or refusing of a proposal. So it's when you offer something to somebody and they say no, whether that's a marriage proposal, whether it's an opportunity to take somebody to a ball game, whether it is a job application, because in that case, you're offering your services. You're saying, here's what I do. I can do the job you're looking for, and I offer to you my services. This is my resume, is my proposal. So you need to understand that when we're defining rejection, rejection is when somebody turns down a proposal or refuses it. And what you're doing when you're presenting that proposal or putting a job, submitting to a job application, is that you are selling yourself. This is what you're doing. You are trying to position yourself against all the other applicants and let that decision maker figure out that you are the best or most qualified or the right person to be doing this job. So that's the first part that you need to understand, is that you need to know that you've got to understand that you are really selling yourself when you're actually making a job application. And when you are rejected, you need to understand that it is about them having found somebody more qualified, better suited, or that they like better or interact better with. So I always look at it when I'm rejected at a job, or somebody chooses to hire a competitor of ours instead of us. I always look at it and go, they don't know what they're missing. They've made a huge mistake. And I then work really, really hard to try to get it to a situation that ultimately, whether that's in a year, 5 years, or 10 years, that I run across that person that rejected me and they ask me to come to work for them, as opposed to me applying for a job with them. And they see the success that I've had, and it could have been at their company, but they failed to recognize that. And that helps boost my ego a little bit. So I am basing this session this morning on the fact that based on 95% of us have received this rejection in the past, and that I'm talking about true rejection, that you actually got an answer that no, sorry, you're not the selected candidate, as opposed to you've applied for a job that 3,000 other people have and they don't respond to anybody other than the people that are selected. So the second thing we want to do is we want to look at, how do we, now that we've defined rejection, how do we look at reacting to rejection? So as I said, I start out, if I'm rejected in a job application, I start out with thinking about, first of all, this is a mistake they're going to come to regret, because they should have hired me. They don't know what they are missing the boat on. They don't know really what they're doing, because they should have hired me, and I'm going to prove that down the road. Not today, not tomorrow, but somewhere down the road, I'm going to cross that person again, and they're going to have to admit that they should have hired me 5 years ago or 10 years ago. That helps me boost my ego and my feeling of self-worth when I'm reacting to this rejection. I have to stay positive, and you need to stay positive. It's the most important thing, because reacting to rejection is you can get into a depression. You can get into what I call is the woe is me moment, where all we do is think about ourselves, and we think about that we didn't get the job, and we're looking for what I call a pity party, that everybody would hopefully pity us because we didn't get the job. Well, do it the other way around. Stay positive. Stay understanding that, what's that you can get that job or another job like it. You need to understand the possible reasons that you weren't successful, because it could be that you weren't successful because you didn't have the university credentials they were looking for, or that you possibly didn't have the experience they were looking for, or possibly that you didn't have you think about going back to that interview, and you probably weren't feeling as positive about yourself that day, and so you were a little meeker, and they were looking for somebody that was outgoing and bold. So you want to address the reasons that you personally can identify as why you possibly were not successful. And then you want to look at those and see how you can actually fix those or do a better job with those. But likewise, you need to look and understand why you were successful. What was it that even though you weren't successful, what were your strengths that day? When you were doing the interview or in your application or in the discussion, what were your strengths? And then continue to build on those. And then understand also that the best candidate is not always hired. Sometimes politics is involved. Sometimes they hired from within the company, and you're from the outside of the company, and they have to offer the job to somebody inside the company if they apply and are qualified. So it's not always the best candidate. Sometimes it's not the best candidate because it's political, literally political, that they're hiring so-and-so's son or daughter, or that they're hiring for a reason other than qualifications. So to meet quotas, all of those sorts of things. So we have to look at it and understand that sometimes they don't always hire the right or best person. And that's not an excuse, but that's also important for you to be able to react to it and understand. You need to have, I would encourage when a rejection comes, that you have that person's name that you interviewed with, or that person that you were corresponding with at least, and be able to go back to them. And I always encourage that when you do get rejected, that you reach back to them and say, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for accepting my application. Thank you for the interview, if you got one, or thank you for the correspondence, if that's what it was. I really appreciate it. I'm obviously disappointed, but I'm sure you hired somebody that will do well in the job. Make them feel good about having, don't make them feel bad for having rejected you. You want to build that relationship, because the next question you're going to ask is to say, would you mind taking a few moments to help me to understand what my strengths and weaknesses were in the process, in my resume, in my interview, so that I can do better on the next interview that I go to. So you're achieving two things in this reaction to rejection. One, you're going to learn more about the process. Number two, why you were hired or not hired. You're also going to find out what your strengths and your weaknesses were, and that will allow you to build on your strengths and fix your weaknesses. So that comes when you have built a relationship and started to talk to somebody, and that you've been able to build that type of relationship, that they will actually say, yes, we can have that. Sometimes they're not allowed to, and understand this. but they can give you some sort of answers. So as a company, when we don't win a piece of business, we get rejected. We always ask for what were the strengths in our submission and what were the weaknesses so that we can improve. And I can tell you that as a company, we get about 80% or 8 in 10 of the times that we've been rejected, we get a post process discussion, the Zoom call, telephone call, something to help us understand what we did well and what we need to improve on and why we didn't win the business. And the same thing goes for you as a candidate applying for a job, especially if you went through the interview process, and you can learn from that process. Okay. So the next area that we're going to look at is the understanding of rejection. So we've looked at defining it and reacting to it, but now we're going to try to understand rejection. And the first thing that you need to understand is that you are in a sales game, and sales is a numbers game. So if you're applying for jobs, it's, as I said right at the outset, you're selling yourself to an employer. You're saying, here's who I am. These are my qualifications, and this is why you should hire me because I can do this job better than anybody else. So you are selling yourself, and understand that in selling yourself, you become part of the sales game, and sales is all about numbers. I'm going to show you, I'll tell you a little story first, that there are people I know that get very excited and are so happy when they get rejected and they get the word no. And the best example in any industry of this is the insurance industry. The people that sell insurance, whether that's life insurance, disability insurance, whatever type of insurance, but especially life insurance people. And these life insurance people are all actuaries. They're numbers people. They calculate everything. They determine what the lifespan of somebody is, if they smoke, don't smoke, whatever it is, so that they don't lose on the end of this. You know, you pay premiums and they pay out, but they only pay out if, you know, you die, and they've got a calculated risk in there. Well, they've also calculated to determine, based over years and years of studies and experience, how many times a insurance salesperson needs to go and get rejected before they get a yes. So on average, at one of the life insurance companies here in Canada, that number is 118. It's 117 or 118. So that means that any salesperson selling life insurance for that company on average can expect 118 people telling them no before they get a yes. So this is a group of people that come back to the office and say at the end of the day, awesome, I got 7 no's today. I am getting closer to that 118. I'm at 83 right now. I have just got a couple more days. If I can get another 7 no's tomorrow and the next day, I am so close to getting a yes. So that's the mentality. Remember, I talked about being positive, and you're going to see in a couple slides talk about looking for the silver lining in the rejection. So part of that silver lining is that this is a numbers game. And a numbers game means you need to make a lot of applications to be able to win a position. And so the end result is that you should be excited about no's because it gets all the no's out of the way so that you ultimately will get your yes. So here's some stats on sales. And these are empirical data, and you can actually see that why most people don't close their sales, why the sale doesn't happen. And I'm hoping that this isn't any of you guys, but 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect. So that's you applying for a job and never following up. 25% of salespeople make a second contact and then stop. 12% of salespeople only make 3 contacts and stop. And only 10% of salespeople make more than 3 contacts. Understand now that 2% of sales are made on the first contact. Only 2% of people that are applying for jobs are basically going to get those jobs if on a first contact. 3% on second, 5% on third, 10% on fourth. 80% of sales are made on the 5th to the 12th contact. So think about it. When you applied to that job, how many contacts did you have with the decision makers or people within that company before they rejected you? The odds are if you have, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 interviews, meetings, interconnections with them, you are way more likely to get that job than if you just submitted an application and sat back and waited for the telephone to ring to tell you that the job was yours. So that means you need to do some work. You need to reach out. You need to make sure they got the application, make sure that they, if they have any questions, and if they call for an interview or clarification, make sure that you follow up on with that. The more times that you connect with them before they make a decision, decreases the chances of you getting a rejection. So furthermore, understand, as I said, rejection is a sales game, or job applications are a sales game, and sales is a numbers game. So if you want to climb that corporate ladder, we have to look and understand that we all fail or we don't reach goals or objectives at some point in our lives. And this is the first and foremost thing. You need to get over that. I don't care whether you've had 5, 7, 12, 15 rejections. You need to get over it, because that happens in life. So I have a 15-year-old daughter. She plays hockey. She's a goalie, and she tried out for this team. I live in BC, so she tried out for this BC team, which would have put her, in the top ranks, and she got cut. And I had to say to her, you know what? Suck it up. You're going to get cut from teams all through the rest of your life. You're going to make some, and you're not going to make some. You're going to pass some courses at school, and you possibly might not do so well in other courses, or possibly fail a course. You're going to have lots of relationships that work out great and some that fail. So understand that rejection and failure are part of life. So I'm going to run another quick poll here. Who here has ever heard of Abe Lincoln? Is there anybody in the group that's heard of Abe Lincoln, President Abe Lincoln?
Okay, and we're gonna close so we have 80% said yes, 20% said no.
All right, so Abe Lincoln, just for that 20%, Abe Lincoln was a president of the United States in the 1800s, and he's the one that led to the abolition of slavery. He's the one that was president during the Civil War and brought everything together and united the country. So this is a guy who was president of the United States of America in the 1800s. I want to show you his resume as it looks based on successes and failures. In 1831, he lost his job. In 1832, he ran for the Illinois state legislature and lost. 1833, he failed in his business. It went bankrupt. 34, he actually got elected. 35, his sweetheart died. He had a nervous breakdown in 36. He ran again for House Speaker in 38 and failed. Ran for the Congress in 43 and failed. Finally, in 46, he was elected to Congress. He lost the renomination in 48. He was rejected for a land officer position in 49. He was defeated in running for the US Senate in 54. In 56, defeated in a run for nomination for vice president. And in 1858, he again was defeated in a run for the US Senate. And finally, in 1860, he was elected the President of the United States of America. So if you look at Abe Lincoln's history, most of us remember him as the President of the United States in 1860 and the president that abolished slavery. What we don't know or understand is that his life was filled with rejection and failure prior to that. but he got up every morning, thought positive, and looked at ways that he could improve himself and move forward. So understand that rejection and failure is part of life. Let's just get up and get better. So what I want you to do is I want you to be able to look for the silver lining, be an optimist. This is a pretty funny little cartoon. The pessimist says that the glass is half full or empty, and the optimist says that the glass is half full. But the really great salesperson, which all of you are for the sake of getting a job, you are a salesperson. You may be going into human resources, you may be going into operations, you may be going to something else, you're not going into sales, but you have to be a salesperson to get that job. The sales rep says, let's talk about the benefits of ice. It's not about it being half full or half empty. It's about the benefits of ice. It can make it colder, it can make it fuller, it can make it more liquidy, it can, whatever. There are a whole bunch of benefits if we add ice to this glass of water. So we want to know, what is the silver lining? One of the silver linings about getting rejected is it's a numbers game. And the more rejections you have, the closer you're going to get to a yes. I want to look at focusing on what you did right and continue to excel at that. That's one of the silver linings. You want to find a way to improve on any weaknesses you may have had. These are things that you can do to make the rejection become positive going forward and overcoming that rejection. This is a fellow that was a basketball player and is pretty famous. His name's Michael Jordan. And I'm going to quote him when he says here, I missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed. So what you need to do is you need to remember that you will have failures, you will get rejected, but to overcome rejection, you need to persevere and you need to continue to be positive and you need to work towards doing better and getting past that rejection. That means you need to get back in that saddle, don't have a pity party, get up, find out what it is that what you did really well in that job interview or in that job application or in that process, and get back on that saddle. You need to figure out what weaknesses you have and fix those up. You need to build relationships with those people that you've met through this interview process or through this job application process. Be connected with them on LinkedIn, have their emails, send them updates. If you get a job in 3 months' time, send them an email and just say, hey, Sally, I just wanted to let you know that I've now got a job over at ABC Company. And thank you again for having taken my application at your company. And I look forward to staying in touch. You're not looking for work. You just want to stay in touch and build a relationship. You want to be able to adapt your resume. Make sure that you can change your resume around so it fits the objectives of the people that are looking to hire you. Make sure that you stand out, because if your resume looks identical to everybody else's resume, then you don't stand out and there's no reason for them to look at your resume. Find a way in the interview to be different, that's positive. Find a way in your resume to be positive and stand out from everybody else. And that way you can make a better impression. And then that decreases the amount of chance that you're going to have of a rejection. Give them a reason to hire you versus all of the other applicants. What's different here today is that it's different from school, because in school you were given that lesson, you were taught the lesson, then given the test. And in the real world, you're given the test, and that's then when you learn the lesson, after the test. So in this case, you had a job application, you made the application, you had an interview or may not have had an interview, but you went through that process and then you got rejected. So what did you learn? Because each rejection is like a test in life. Learn the lesson it's teaching you and move on. So to wrap up, I've got 5 key ideas to managing a no or a rejection. And the first one is understand it's not personal. When they don't hire you, it has nothing to do with you as a person. It has to do with the qualifications, or they've hired somebody else for another reason. Understand number two is understand that it's a numbers game, and you need to get a whole bunch of no's and rejections before you get that yes. Number three is you need to determine your strengths and your weaknesses and build on those strengths and eliminate those weaknesses. Number four, stay positive. Find that silver lining. What good came out of this and what you have learned from it? And number five, stay positive, and you know you will be successful. So any questions at all? I will turn the floor back. I'm going to just look at this. That's the same slide, and then just a thank you. So I'm going to get rid of the slides, and I'm going to come back on here live. Where am I here? Hopefully.
There you go.
Okay, and I'll put my picture back up here if I can get it. Where am I here? There we go.
Okay, so, fantastic. Thank you, Brent, for that very informative, but also very uplifting presentation. As you said, we are now welcoming attendees questions. As I said, I know sometimes for some of us, rejection is kind of like a touchy subject. And as I said, it's a tough job market, and I know we've been through this, so we're here to listen to you and try to answer to the best of our ability. I do have a question for you, Brent. Do you have any rituals or exercises that help you deal with rejection or negative responses?
Really, really good question. I think it's sort of like what I said right at the beginning. I think my biggest ritual on the rejection side is that I look at it as they don't know what they've lost. They don't know what they've missed out on. And one day that person that said no to me is going to say, gosh, I wish I had hired Brent. And as a company, I know recently we lost a piece of business, or we didn't win a piece of business, so we got rejected. And we thought that we were the most qualified and the best people for the job. And today we still believe it. And the really great thing with that is that we went back and we looked at it. And when we did the post interview, we asked, what were our strengths and weaknesses? And the one weakness in their minds was the price. And that was why we didn't get the business. And I could sit there afterwards and say, you know what? We're worth that amount of money. That's what we're worth. And if they don't want to pay it, that's their problem. So, and over the years, when we've lost business, probably 25% of the business that we haven't won or we got rejected on, at least 1 in 4 of those pieces of business came back to us after they hired our competitor and hired us to redo the job. So whether it's an individual or whether it's a company, I have that same ritual, which is I believe they made a mistake and they will figure it out at some point in time. And that's my biggest ritual. And I quite often in the back of my head, that ritual includes, I'm going to show them. I'm going to make it so that they'll come and beg me to work for them.
Okay, I like that. We are now welcoming a few questions from our audience. Here we have one attendee asking, is there ever a time to stop and take a break from job search applications? And is there any way to know it's like, okay, it's time to take a break, or should we just relentlessly continue? What do you think?
Well, I think that I'm not so sure there's a time to stop other than when you get a job. I mean, if you're looking for a job and you need a job, you need to pay bills, then there isn't a time to stop, but there is a time to pause. And that pause might be to say, okay, I've had 35 rejections. I've had 35 no's. And this is a real looking inside and saying, why have I had 35 rejections? And understanding what those concerns are and correcting them. I think there's a time to stop if you do the same thing over and over again and you don't get better results. So if your resume really doesn't show how you're qualified for the job and you just keep sending out the same resume to everybody, then you need to look at it and say, it's not that I'm not qualified, and it's not that they're not hiring me because of my qualifications, it's how I present myself. So I think you need to, it's not about stopping and giving up. It's about pausing, finding out why you don't have the job, and then going back and restarting. Does that make sense? Is that to the person that asked the question?
I'm waiting to see her response. She hasn't responded yet, but
Okay.
we're open here with the chat. So I'm gonna go on to the next question, and I'll just wait to hear back from the attendee. So we have another question here from another person in the audience. Is it a good idea to follow up with an interviewer, which you sort of chatted about that throughout the presentation? But they say about the status of my applications, since I have not heard from them in 2 weeks, and perhaps I know the answer is no.
So knowing that it got no, that because it's been 2 weeks, doesn't necessarily mean no. It could be that the decision maker could have had a death in the family and everything got postponed. And it could be 4 weeks. I remember applying for a job once, and the timeline that they laid out to say, oh, we're going to do all the interviews by this date, we're going to select by this date. Well, I thought I was, one of the candidates for the short list. And the end result was that it had been like 3 weeks later than their decision time. So I had reached out during that time. And what I found out was that that person had actually had their father had passed away suddenly, and they had taken time off. And because it was the director, they needed to be they were the person that was going to hire this role. So everything was put on hold. So it's about having knowledge and understanding. So the answer to the question is, if you haven't heard in 2 weeks and they said that you would know in 2 weeks, don't presume you didn't get the job, but you can reach out and say, hey, wanted to check in. I always use the line, oh, I've had some issues with my email, and I'm not sure if you had sent anything to me as an update, but I haven't heard anything for over 2 weeks, but it may be and putting the fault on myself. That fault may be mine because I had a bad day of email and I lost a couple emails, didn't come through. And then they can get back to you and say, oh, no, we haven't made a decision yet for the following reasons or whatever. Or they might say, you know what? Yes, we have shortlisted. You did not make the shortlist. Then my response would be, okay, I fully understand. I accept that. Could we set up an appointment for 10 minutes on the phone so I can understand what the strengths were in my presentation or in my application and where I need to improve? This will really help me to get a job down the road. And I would really appreciate your help. And the real key here is asking people to help you. And I know a lot of us have big egos and we don't want to ask for help. But if we ask that person for help, it's a lot harder for them to say no to helping you. People have a spot in their hearts. They want to help. And if you if you say, I want to know why you didn't hire me from a perspective of anger and disappointment, then they're going to say, no, we don't have to do that. But if you tell them you only want to know why you didn't get hired so that you can improve, so that you can better apply for a job, now they're looking at you as a positive person, not a negative person.
And I just wanted to let you know that the Bethany, who asked the previous question, she said yes, thank you very much. And then I have a couple of people asking this, and I'm also interested to know how you're going to answer. So we talk about like following up after an interview, they haven't called you and whatever. in today's age where there's a lot of those interactions, even before seeing an interviewer, we do everything online. If we send an application online and we don't hear from anyone, do you have any tips, like should job seekers follow up even though they don't necessarily have a contact? What do you recommend? Do you
I
have
would
any insight?
recommend, it's pretty simple that there is so much information on the internet you should be able to find. So if you applied online, first of all, there's usually a posting of a job application, or there's a posting internal, like in Workopolis or whatever its modern name is or whatever. But there's usually, here's the job, here's the contact information. It's John Smith, and they'll have an email. So if they don't, if there is no contact, which quite often there isn't, it's just submit your application to our big behemoth of a company and somebody will take a look at it. But if you know you're applying for a administrative job as an executive assistant, or you're applying as a senior engineer in a firm, well, I would be going to that company and I would find out who's in charge of administrative assistants or who's in charge of the engineering department. And there's enough data there that you can find some names. Then I'd be going to LinkedIn and I'd be going to Google and Facebook, and I would find them on there. And if you pay for a premium on LinkedIn, which does cost some money, but if you have a premium on LinkedIn and you're connected with somebody, you can get their personal email. So you can reach out to them by LinkedIn, or you can reach out to them by email. And if you find them on Facebook, you can reach out to them. And if you can find them on Twitter, you can DM them. So in the modern world of technology, everybody says to me, oh, there's no relationships because everything is through the automation system. Yes, but it's that same automation system and same technology that gives us more content and data. Like if you find out that the person that's head of that department, his name is John Chanowski. You know what? You look up, just do a Google for John Chanowski and the company, and it'll bring his information up. And you'll find out that he has a wife and 3 kids, and one of those kids is playing hockey, and ironically, he plays hockey in the same league as your nephew does, and actually plays on the same team. Now you've got some linkage, right? You would never have known that. And there's more, technology can give you more data and information than it can hide. So I would say with all this technology and online submissions and no real people involved, if you do the legwork, you can find real people and you can build a relationship, which again would outposition you from any of your competition.
And I'm glad that you're saying that, because it's true. And again, if people are feeling helpful because it's like I applied online and there's nothing else I can do, there are things that you can still do pursuing a specific position, right? So I love that. So I have an interesting comment here for you, Brent, from one of our attendees. It says your statistics theory and make a lot of applications is in contradiction with what it is generally stated that you have to personalize your resume and don't apply randomly to any job. So here it says if so I think they're saying is like it is true that it's a numbers game, but in theory people say like you need to take time to apply for those jobs that you're interested by customizing. And so what do you think about that?
I would agree 100%. First of all, it is a numbers game. I don't care how you look at it, it is a numbers game. But number 2, if you just have one sample resume and you're randomly plunking it in on every job you can find, then it's not, the numbers are not in your favor by a long shot. But if you've picked 10 jobs that you think are worthwhile, that you would like to do and you're qualified to do. So if I go back to the life insurance salesperson, the 118 rejections aren't from the average person, they're from all qualified leads. So they're all qualified and should be buying life insurance, but they may already have it. They may buy it from their brother. They may buy it. They may not believe in insurance. There's a whole bunch of reasons why they say no to it, but they're all qualified leads. And in the same case, I agree with the attendee. It has to be, an applicable job. And I could not agree more that your resume has to change with every single application. I don't care whether you're applying for, and I'm just going to use this as an example, as a sales manager for two different companies. Both of them are, let's call them printing companies. The resume should look different for both of them, because there is no way those two companies both ask for the exact same goals and objectives in their, and the details in their job descriptions. So never should your resume be the same in any two applications you make. Applying for jobs is a full-time job. It is a full-time job. And so if you want to be able to deal with rejection better, you need to play the numbers game. You need to customize your submissions only to where you're qualified. Like, if there's no sense in you applying for a job as an engineer when you have a degree in poli-sci, so it's political science. So you've got to be qualified for it. So I hope that answers the question, or not necessarily the question, but agree with the statement.
And then again, we have here another attendee, which I feel a lot of us can understand where she's coming from. How do we stay positive? And again, besides stating the obvious, what's happening right now in the world, but specifically with the job market, like the conditions of the job market, when we hear that companies are laying off employees and you're looking for work. So it's kind of like there's a lot of negativity out there. So do you have any recommendations for our listeners on how to remain positive?
Well, I think that, and you're absolutely right, the number of layoffs are huge. The number of people on CERB, or up to yesterday on CERB, the number of people going on to UI. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, the pandemic has devastated our workforce. And in Alberta, you tack that onto the oil market on top of that is even worse, right? But there are a lot of companies that are thriving right now. Like, there are companies, and I'm not saying drivers at the restaurant delivery services like Skip the Dishes, but they're looking for tech people. They're looking for programmers. They're looking for marketing people. They're looking for, so there's a whole bunch of other stuff that they're looking for. If you look at a company like Clorox right now, or Lysol, their growth in hiring is way up. Amazon's hiring is way up. So there are businesses that are benefiting from this pandemic. So there are jobs out there. There are more layoffs than there are new jobs. The statistics show that. But how do you stay positive in all this? I think that what I try to do, because as a company, our business is down, so how do I deal with that? I'm looking to see, and this sounds really weird and really stupid, but I'm looking to see how I can help other people. So I'm looking, like we're doing today with this session, right? So if I'm looking for a job and I made an application that, is there something that I can do to help somebody else? Whether that is, I see a job that looks good that I know I'm not qualified for, but I know somebody else that's unemployed, shoot it over to them. If they get that job, I feel better, right? And it boosts your morale when you're helping other people. And then if you get a job interview and somebody says, so what have you been doing during the pandemic? And you say, well, I've been looking for work, but I've also helped 4 other people find jobs. I wasn't qualified for those jobs. I knew people who were, and I helped them to get those jobs. That job interviewer is going to look at you and go, this person is different than the rest of the people I interviewed. Everybody else said they just kept looking for jobs and looking for jobs, but this person cared to help other people. Or it may be going to a company or going to a not-for-profit and saying, you know what, I have skills in IT, and you guys are having trouble with your IT right now, and I believe in the Canadian Cancer Society or whoever it is. How can I help? That becomes resume material that you volunteered during that time. But also, there's people that are other volunteers that are there, and they may have a job opening or know of a job opening in the IT world. And you get it not by looking online, but you get it by building relationships with people. So, and it also makes you feel good when you go out and you volunteer at a place like Canadian Cancer Society or the Red Cross or the Salvation Army. I don't care who it is, but Big Boys and Girls Club, whatever. And in doing so, you lift up your own self-worth. That helps you stay positive. It also builds your resume, and it also builds your network, which is essential to job finding.
Absolutely. And we are almost out of time. So I just want to say maybe I can forward some of these questions to Brent. But if you guys are struggling right now with rejection or positivity, or maybe identifying the reasons why maybe you're getting rejected, and you feel you're doing the same over and over and it's not working, prospect can help you. If you're not currently a prospect client, I want to invite you to connect with us, to connect with one of our career advisors. Our phone numbers and contact info are on the screen. But all of our services are at no cost, so you don't lose anything. Right now, during the you don't lose and you gain stuff, because you're going to be talking to people that know the market, that are working with a lot of job seekers, that are working with organizations that are hiring, so they can help you. So again, our information is on the screen. I hope you give some time to think about it, contact us, and as I always say during these sessions, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always posting information about future events that you may find interesting, as well as networking sessions with employers here in Calgary and in Alberta. So make sure to check my LinkedIn out and connect with me. Also, if you are interested in future events with Prospect, our website is on screen. Look us up on LinkedIn and Facebook, because as I said, we constantly have information that you are going to find relevant as a job seeker, and as well as these events that can, as I said, either we can connect you with recruiters that are hiring, or provide information that is relevant to you about the job market and just relevant as a job seeker. I want to thank you again, Brent, for joining us this morning and sharing your expertise with the job seekers. I see a lot of comments saying thank you very much, thank you very much. So it was a fantastic session, and I hope we are able to collaborate with you again in the future.
Thank you very much. I hope it was valuable to everybody, and you've all got my email and my LinkedIn. So thank you very much, and all the best to all of you. And thanks, Mercedes, for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you, everyone, and have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.